In the next lecture of international institutions. So we discussed IMF, then we discussed the World Bank, the recent reforms of IMF, then we discussed the five organizations, five subsidiaries of IMF, then we discussed the new development bank, also known as the BRICS bank, and we discussed AIIB. Then the next international institution is WTO. So WTO, it was not set up at Bretton Woods twins at Bretton Woods conference, and it came in picture. WTO was established in 1995. It was established in 1994 and started functioning in 1995. So the precursor of WTO is GATT, General Agreement in Tariff and Trade. So General Agreement in Tariff and Trade means it was only for the goods. It was not for the services. So GATT was established in 1947 and started working from 1948. So the thing is, why there was a need felt to shift from GATT to WTO. So earlier, in case of GATT, first we will discuss the distinguished features. What is the difference between GATT and WTO? So the GATT was a negotiation approach. So that negotiation approach, it has been shifted to the institutional approach by WTO. The structure of WTO is like this. We have the General Council, we have Ministerial Council, a specialized dispute settlement mechanism is there, a special secretary is there, a special policy making body is there. Here we will have the Ministerial Council. Under Ministerial Council we have the General Council, and under General Council we have Dispute Settlement Board. Here we have the Director General, and then we have the Policy Making Board. So this is what the structure of the WTO. So once WTO has been established, so the negotiation approach between two countries, it has been shifted to the institutional approach of this. The next one is, it is a legal entity. WTO becomes the legal. If suppose, what is the function of WTO? The function or the role of WTO is to decrease or is to remove, eliminate the tariff and non-tariff barriers. So tariff barriers, it's like we discussed, the countervailing duty is there or the anti-dumping duty is there. So the governments, they can misuse this countervailing duty and anti-dumping duty. So this countervailing duty, anti-dumping duty, they are creating hindrance in the free flow of goods and services across the borders of the country. So the first function of WTO is to eliminate the tariff barriers. And then the non-tariff barrier means the quota system. Suppose, just like in case of India, in case of we have National Renewable Mission, Rajiv Gandhi National Renewable Mission, under which there is a 30% domestic requirement. It means if you will import, if a company, outside company wants to start their renewable energy business in India, that solar energy business, so to start functioning, 30% of the products you have to purchase from within India. So that domestic requirement, a quota has been fixed. Similarly, in case of Britain, in case of UK, today also there is a quota fixed for Indian textile as well as the Bangladesh textile. So that is what the quota system. They have already decided that we will import only 70% of the textile. So this is the non-tariff barrier that we have. So to eliminate the tariff and non-tariff barrier is the reason of existence of WTO. It is the only purpose of WTO to decrease tariff and non-tariff barrier. Now suppose there is some issue between two countries, just like the recent solar issue between India and USA, and before that there was some pharmaceutical company was there, that issue was there. So all these issues, if the two countries are there, they are having some issue, they will go to the Dispute Settlement Board, and it is a legal entity. There is a fixed amount of duration. Within 18 months, this Dispute Settlement Board will give the judgment. Then, unlike IMF and World Bank, WTO is not a subsidiary of the United Nations. IMF and World Bank, they are a subsidiary of UN, but WTO is not a subsidiary of IMF and World Bank. These individual statements can be asked in the objective type exam. Then no weighted voting. Just like we discussed, there is a quota system in case of IMF as well as there is a quota system in the World Bank. That quota decides your voting. But in this case, there is no weighted voting. all the weighting, each and every country will get the same voting power, that is 1. And the unique thing of WTO is the decision should be unanimous. Even if a single country disagrees to any particular agreement, that agreement cannot be passed by WTO. Just like that National Food Security Act we will discuss, or the Doha Round, why all these, the trade facilitation agreement, why all these agreements they failed, or they were not able to pass, except this trade facilitation agreement which passed after a negotiation between Indian Prime Minister and US Prime Minister. But full 162 countries, unless and until these 162 countries agrees to pass an agreement, no agreement can pass through WTO. It means the decision should be unanimous. Then the agreements are binding. Whatever the decision of the Dispute Settlement Board, the countries have to accept it. Then within a time bound manner, we discussed the 18 months is the maximum time frame. Then the wider coverage. GATT was there only for the goods. When in the 1960s, 70s and 80s, the share of services increased in the domestic GDP as well as in the trade. So the role of services, the share of services increased. A need was felt that there should be an international organization to decrease the tariff and non-tariff barrier related to service. And this need was more felt in the developed countries, because at that time they were the net exporters of the services, financial service there, banking service there, be it any service. But these developed countries, they were the exporters of the financial services. So under the leadership of USA, different rounds were held during 1960s, 70s and 80s. So in 60s there was a Kennedy round. So if in the exam it comes that Kennedy round is related to what? So Kennedy round is related to the establishment of WTO. In 60s there was Kennedy round, in 70s there was a Tokyo round, in 1980s Uruguay round is held, and finally the Marrakesh Declaration, Marrakesh Treaty was held in 1994 and WTO was established. And where is Marrakesh? Marrakesh is a place, or it's a city in one of the country of Africa. It's a hint. And that country is in the northwest of Africa. You know how many countries are there in Africa? 54 countries. So that country is Morocco. Marrakesh is there in Morocco. Then there are total 162 members are there in WTO. Such factual questions started asking in the exam. So there are 162, and the 162, the latest member that has been added is the Kazakhstan, and 161st member was Yemen. Roberto Azevedo is from Brazil and is the present chairman of WTO. All this is the factual information. Then there are two rules of WTO. First one is the most favored nation. The problem of international trade is you give some extra exemption to one country and you don't want to give that extra exemption to some other country. Suppose India-Pakistan relations are not good, so India will discourage the import of goods from Pakistan or vice versa. But that is what the role of the WTO, to decrease the tariff as well as the non-tariff barrier. So this most favored nation is the first rule. The second one is the national treatment. Most favored nation says if you are giving a status of MFN to one country, then you cannot discriminate among these countries. Suppose this is one country to whom India gave MFN status. This is the second country, this is third country, this is fourth country, and this is India. Now India cannot discriminate among 1, 2 and 3, 4. What if you are importing this pen from one and you are levying a custom duty of 10 rupees? So the same 10 rupee custom duty should be levied for all these countries. India cannot discriminate among these countries if India has given MFN status to these countries. Just like India has given MFN status to Pakistan but not vice versa. So India cannot discriminate between Pakistan and USA because to both countries we have given MFN status. But Pakistan can. because Pakistan has not given MFN status to India. Then the second rule is national treatment. National treatment says once imported, suppose you have imported this pen, before importing you can discriminate, but once imported, once this pen is here, now you cannot discriminate between Indian pen and foreign pen. These two both should be same only. In the chapter of history, we have that Swarajist movement of 1905. In that Swarajist movement, the freedom fighters, they discourage, they even put all this Videshi clothes, Videshi textile, Videshi things on fire, and they officially promoted the use of only domestic goods. That cannot happen now because India is a signatory of WTO. One homework is there. What is the difference between Swarajist movement, non-cooperation agreement, civil disobedience movement and 1942 Quit India movement? That is a part of history. In the national treatment, now once imported, you cannot discriminate among the domestic as well as the imported goods. So these are the two major rules of WTO. Then we have the dispute settlement mechanism. So under the dispute settlement mechanism, a dispute settlement board has been set up, and within 18 months they have to give their judgment. But there are few exceptions. Exceptions in the sense, if you are involved in all these things, then no country can go against you in the dispute settlement board. The first one is regional trade agreements. If two countries, India is there and Sri Lanka is there, so if two countries wants to sign an agreement, that is known as regional trade agreement, or we can say under regional trade agreement, suppose they have signed free trade agreement. What is PTA, preferential trade agreement, free trade agreement? What is customs union, common market, economic union, SICA, SIPA? All these things we will discuss under the balance of payment, because they are the level of regional integration. So suppose free trade agreement has been signed between India and Sri Lanka. So if this is there, free trade agreements means when India will import the goods from Sri Lanka, we will not levy any custom duty. Similarly, when Sri Lanka will import something from India, Sri Lanka will not levy any custom duty. But the same item, if Sri Lanka will import from some other country, then Sri Lanka is going to levy the custom duty. But this is an exception in WTO. So regional trade agreements, they can be signed. Then special favor. If you are giving a special favor to third world countries means poor countries, then it is possible. You can give it. No country can go against you. So suppose India is saying, if I am importing something from few of the African countries, then no country can say. Now China cannot say that when you are importing this pen from Africa, you are not levying any custom duty. But when you are importing the same good, the same pen from China, you are levying a custom duty, which is making Chinese pen costly and thus decreasing the demand of Chinese pen in India. But China cannot go against India to dispute settlement board, because we are giving special favors, special concessions we are giving to the third world countries. Similarly, anti-dumping duty can be levied. Anti-dumping we discussed, if some country is dumping the goods in India, then India can levy the anti-dumping duty. And then the next one is, you can ban the import. The full ban of import is possible only on the basis of scientific study. If there is a scientific reason. For example, New Zealand banned the import of milk from China because there was a content of melanin. Similarly, we also banned the import of chicken from USA. The USA banned the import of pharmaceutical, Ranbaxy drugs, because of these things. So the country has to do the scientific study. If under scientific study there is some negative to the health, then you can ban these things. So these are the 3-4 exceptions which are available to all the countries. Regional trade agreement is there, special favor to the third world countries, anti-dumping provisions can be levied, and you can ban the import of commodities on some scientific study. So this is what the dispute settlement mechanism of WTO, the institutionalized approach of WTO. Then we have different agreements. So the first agreement is GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. So of course it is only for goods. So we have sanitary and phytosanitary measures, which says that food items, they can be banned if they are causing any risk to the health of the host country. So again you have to do the scientific study. Under scientific study you can ban the food related items. Then we have technical barriers to trade. For non-food items also you can ban under technical barriers to trade. So these are the two sub-component of GATT. Then we have GATS, General Agreement on Trade in Services. So this is a new thing. So it is related to, you should allow, the two countries should allow the free flow of these 4 things. Natural person, so you should allow, you should give the visa to the person of some other country. Just like the USA has increased the visa fees. So if visa fees USA has increased, that is going to create a hindrance in the free flow of natural person. That is why India is saying we will go against USA, against the move of USA to increase the visa fees in dispute settlement board. Then the airlines. Suppose Indian Airlines wants to cross this particular country. You cannot say no unless and until there is a no-fly zone in that particular country. And no-fly zone should be passed by the United Nations. Then there should be telecom. So free flow of telecom should be allowed. Then we have the financial services. So these are the 4 things which comes under GATS, General Agreement on Trade in Services. Then we have TRIPS, Trade Related Intellectual Property Rights. So it is related to the intellectual property. This is what me and you, we are involved in the intellectual property right. Whatever knowledge I have acquired across this number of years, I am sharing with you. So it is kind of service only I am giving you. It is not materialistic. It is the knowledge that I have. We are just discussing that particular thing. If somebody is writing a book, that comes under intellectual property right. If somebody is creating a movie, if somebody has created a documentary, if writing a book, all these things, they are a part of intellectual property right. So TRIPS is related to intellectual property right. Why there is a huge significance of TRIPS, or why the developed countries? Because the patent system in UK, it started way back in 18th century. From 18th century they have created this intellectual property right. It's like patent. Patent is what? If somebody has invented something, if suppose this ink is there and I'm saying that I have to use this duster to rub this particular ink. Suppose somebody comes up with a patent that while writing from this particular pen, if I erase through this way and it is erased, so that will be a patent. So patent is applicable for 20 years, just like Indian Patents Act we have, and it is how to get the patents we'll discuss in CL, compulsory license topic. So let's forget about patents now. Then the next one is the copyright. So copyright is nothing but it is for the literary work, for the drama work, for the book and all these things. So this is what the copyright, somebody got the copyright. Superproofs got the copyright of this particular video, this particular discussion that we are doing. Then we have the trademark. So the trademark is to distinguish between 2 signs. For example, the time. For example, one institute is there known as Time. And Time is a famous publication in USA. So they sued this particular Time because earlier Time was using this. And it's the same trademark of that particular publication. So finally the time added these things. Now you can distinguish between Indian Time Institute and the US publication. So to some logos are there, so you have to distinguish the logo of Superfruits from the logo of some other company. That is what the trademark is. Then we have industrial design. So industrial design, what is the outlay of this particular company? Suppose I am using here, this is one office, here this is second office, third office and fourth office. Then I can take an industrial design of this particular outlay. Then we have the geographical tag. The thing is, this patent, copyright, trademark and industrial design, they are available to the individuals. An individual can apply for these four things. But geographical indicator, geographical tag is for that geographical area. For example, we have Kanchipuram sarees. So any producer of Kanchipuram, they can sell the sarees with the name, with the GI tag of Kanchipuram. So geographical indicator, Bikaneri Bhujia. So anybody who is from Bikaner, who is producing Bhujia in Bikaner, can use that particular GI tag. So this is GI tag you will give to that particular area, to the geographical area. So GI tag is a geographical concept, but will be given by the government. And once the GI tag is given, it means the government is accepting that this particular item or the items of this area, they are unique. So that is going to increase in the demand of that particular commodities. Then patents, how me and you can apply for patents. So suppose this is what the patent office, Directorate General of Patent. So if you want to get a patent on some new technology, so you have to file an application to this Directorate General Office. This Directorate General Office of India, they will send this technology with the Directorate General of different countries. Suppose they will send to USA, they will send to UK, China and all these countries. The countries which are available on this net. So they will send your patent application to here, and once all these countries, all these offices, they will agree that no such patent exists in their country, then only once the NOC of all these countries will come, then only A will get patent over that particular technology. But suppose there is one country which is not attached to this world patent network. For example, Somalia is there. So if Somalia is not connected to this particular area, so a patent which you got in India will not be applicable in Somalia. So it's not like if you have patent in one country, it is applicable across the world. So if that country is not attached to this network, your patent does not exist in that particular country. So this is how anybody can apply for the patent, and one patent is applicable for 20 years. So the pharmaceutical companies of USA, they were involved in evergreening of patent. One Switzerland company was there, and that Switzerland company, Novartis, was there. So that Novartis was involved in evergreening of patents. Evergreening of patents means you are just doing a minute change in the salt composition of that particular medicine, and you are again applying for the patent. So the Supreme Court of India said that this company is involved, Novartis is involved in the evergreening of patents. So a new patent should not be given to the Novartis. Similarly, in Indian Patents Act also, there are two types of patents. First one is process patent, and the second one is product patent. So compulsory license is in news. We will discuss why it is in news. So process patent is, suppose A plus B plus C equals to D. So first you are adding A plus B, and then you are adding C, and finally it is giving you a salt, that is known as D. So process patents say that if you will change the process irrespective of the final product, you will get different patent for this and different patent for this. Before 2004-05 in India we had process patent, because India is a developing country. When WTO came in 1995, WTO gave 10 years to developing countries to change their domestic act as per the requirement of the WTO. So in 2004-5 we amended our act and we converted our process patent to the product patent. Product patent says if A plus B plus C equals to D, whatever it is, if the final outcome is D, you will get only one patent. So this is known as the product patent. So these companies, they were doing only minute changes. Earlier this was there, they added 1 plus B dash, only minute change, and finally created only a minute different salt, minute different medicine, D dash, and they were filing for the patent because this D got patent only for 20 years. After 20 years, this patent will not be valid. And whoever is holding the patent, suppose one company is there who is holding the patent, what this company will get is the royalty. So this is what the patent is, or this is what the evergreening of patents is. Similarly, we have a concept of evergreening of loans. Evergreening of loans means, suppose SBI is there and SBI gave a loan to A and A is not able to return it. So SBI, suppose SBI gave a loan of 10 rupees and every month SBI is supposed to give 5 rupees, but SBI is not able to give. So if SBI will give one more loan of 5 rupees this month, so that A can repay the EMI of this old loan, and then the very next month again SBI will give you a 5 rupees loan, so that the second month also A can repay that 5 rupees EMI. So this is known as evergreening of loan. Giving new loans to repay the old loan is evergreening of loans. Then compulsory license is, suppose one company, one German company is there, an Indian Hyderabad based company is there, Natco Limited, and there is one cancer drug that is known as Dexavar. So the price of this drug was very high, it was more than 3 lakh rupees. So Indian cancer patients, because India, you can say anything about India and nobody can prove you wrong. You can say India is a poor country, I agree. You can say India is a rich country, I agree. You can say India is an underdeveloped country, I agree. You can say India is highly developed country, I agree. Whatever you want to say about India, you can say it and nobody can prove you wrong. The reason is the diversity of India. Too diverse geographically, culturally, religiously, so diverse country we are. So the price of Nexavar was 3 lakh rupees. So very rich people, they were able to afford it. Of course, the country in which the scam, the size of the scam is 1.76 lakh crore, at least few people are there who can afford this 3 lakh rupees per month cost of Nexavar. But a country where the BPL, the below poverty line, is just 35-36 rupees, then that person cannot afford this Nexavar. So Nexavar was a drug. So this Natco is a generic drug maker. So generic drug maker, first they asked from these bayers that India is a poor country and all these things, so I want to make a generic drug of this particular drug. Then Bayer refused because that is the profit, that is what the Bayer is getting, the royalties from buyers selling this Nexavar. Then this Natco applied to Directorate General of India. Then this Directorate General of Patent, they do the analysis and they allowed Natco to create a generic drug of this cancer causing drug, that is Nexavar. But that does not mean that Natco don't have to pay any royalty. So now Natco will pay some royalty. It's not the old one. Some royalty will be paid to Bayer, as well as the patent will still be valid. Two things you have to remember, that if the government is giving a compulsory license for any drug, that does not mean you don't have to pay any royalty. You have to pay royalty. Why you have to pay some royalty? Because that patent is still valid. The only thing is because of because this India is a socialist country also, so for the sake of the full society, the full country of India, government allowed that this NATCO should produce this generic drug for the betterment of the society, for the betterment of the poor people. But the thing is, you cannot export this generic drug. This is for India, so export of generic drug is not allowed. And this is not something illegal that India has done. It is very well defined in WTO rules. Article 31 has provisions related to compulsory license. So all these conditions which I discussed, poverty should be there, the cost of that particular drug should be non-affordable. In all such conditions, the country can allow the making of the generic drug, but you cannot export that generic drug. All this is mentioned in Article 31 of WTO. But still, US government put India under that priority list. Why they put us under priority list? Because India is such a big country. If India start doing this compulsory license, this was the first case. If India will allow such compulsory license, that will be a precedence for the other countries, and other countries also will follow the same footsteps. And 30% of the US population is dependent on intellectual property rights. So if countries like India having so much of demand, it's such a big market, if the government of India will do such things, then that precedence will be followed by different countries, and that will be the loss of 30% of the occupation of USA. That is how it comes, where the diplomacy come into picture. Although this is legal, but still USA put India under that priority list. So this is what the compulsory license is. It's not very much related to economics, but yeah, because they again put India under priority list for the second year, so it is relevant from exam perspective. Then we have this Doha Round. So Doha Round came in 2001, and this Doha Round is mostly related to the agriculture. Again, in Doha Round, we have developing countries, we have developed countries. They are against each other. Developed countries headed by USA, developing countries headed by India. Although India got backing of G77 countries, these poor countries are there, also a backing of G33 countries, and developed countries headed by USA. The major problem is related to the agriculture, the opening of the agriculture market. Because in case of USA or the developed countries, the agriculture is well established. There only 4 or 5% of the population is dependent on agriculture. So the per capita income of the US farmer is much more in comparison to the per capita income of Indian farmer. In India, 49 to 50% of the employment is given by the agriculture, but only 17% of the GDP is being contributed by the agriculture. So there is a huge gap. Indian farmers are very poor. So if you will allow these foreign countries to sell their agriculture commodities in India at cheap price, so Indian farmer is going to perish. To avoid such situation, there are lots of restrictions, quota system, license system, and Indian agriculture market or this developing countries agriculture market has not been opened. Even though LPG reforms we accepted, but LPG is there except for agriculture. But it's not like the US market or the developed countries, they have opened their market. No, still they have continued with the textile. The quota system is still valid in textile. We have in 4 African countries which export a lot of textile, but they are not allowed to be imported by USA because that is going to affect their farmers. So on the one hand, they want to open the developing countries border, but on the other hand, it was in news that the protectionist approach of USA, that within USA earlier they were open, but now when cheap labor is available in the developing country, So now they want to guard it. How they are guarding it? They are giving incentive to those companies who are not outsourcing their work. Just like BPO is there. So rather than involving a US citizen in the BPO industry, these developed countries, they started outsourcing that work to the developing country. But now that protectionist approach, it has started coming into the developed country. So under that Doha round, it is related to agriculture. They also have some protection related to textile. They also have some protection related to the cotton. The cotton is also a major problem. So all this is related to Doha round. Under Doha round, we have special safeguard mechanism. So what is there in special safeguard mechanism is, suppose India is producing wheat, and this SSM is related to agriculture commodity. Suppose the price of wheat in India is 20 rupees, and if you will import, then also it is 18 to 22 rupees. It is between 18 to 22 rupees depending on the quality of the wheat. So it is not a problem. But suppose internationally the prices decrease. India can levy countervailing duty, India can levy anti-dumping duty. But see the difference between this. Countervailing duty is levied only if this foreign country, they are giving any subsidy for the production of wheat. But suppose these countries, they are not giving any subsidy for production of wheat, so you cannot levy countervailing duty. CVD can be levied only if you are dumping it. It means in their market the price is 15 rupees. In their market the price is 25 rupees and they are dumping in 18 to 22 rupees. Then you can levy anti-dumping. But think that because of huge production or whatsoever reason, in their market itself the price becomes 18. Earlier the price was 25 and now suddenly the price becomes 18 rupees. So no CVD and no anti-dumping can be levied. In that case, still you need some protection for the Indian farmers. In that case, you can trigger out special safeguard mechanism. But the problem is, what should be the trigger? Whether there is a decrease in prices of 10% or whether there is a decrease in prices by 40%. Developing countries are saying, developing countries means India, headed by India only in Doha round. India is saying if there is a decrease in price by 10%, then we will put restrictions. Restrictions means either we will stop it or we will put some import duty. Developed countries, they are saying that this trigger price should be 40%. If there is a decrease in the price of 40%, import price of 40%, this price of 40%, then only special safeguard mechanism should be initiated. So this is what first contradiction related to special safeguard mechanism. The second one is agreement on agriculture. The second provision, the second contention is agreement on agriculture. This Doha round is highly relevant from exam perspective. These three topics, last three topics, compulsory license, this Doha round and National Food Security Act issue. Agreement on agriculture is there, which is nothing but it is based on the prices of 1986 to 89. So under agreement on agriculture, there are three pillars. First one is the domestic support. The subsidies, different types of subsidies given by the domestic country. Then we have export subsidy. And the third one is market access. So these are the three pillars of agreement on agriculture. First one is domestic support. Under this domestic support, we have three types of subsidies: green box, amber box, I don't have these different color pen, and blue box. Yeah, blue is there. So agreement on agriculture says you have to remove all these types of subsidies except green box. Green box subsidy, it is like you are educating the farmers. you are training the farmers, you are increasing the irrigation areas of the farmers, you are making some canals and all. So all such type of subsidy is known as green box subsidy. It is allowed. No restriction is there on this green box subsidy. Then we have the amber box subsidy. These subsidy, they are market distorting. Just like we have minimum support price. So minimum support price is there, which is an example of product subsidy, not production subsidy. So if product subsidy is there, so if you are producing 100 kg in this 1 hectare, the actual subsidy that you are getting is less. If you will produce 1000 kg, then your subsidy will be more. If you will produce 10,000 kg, then your subsidy is much more. So it means you are incentivizing to produce more and more. And when more wheat will be produced in India, more supply of wheat will be there. And when more supply will be there, there are chances that India will export this wheat. And when we will export this wheat, so that is going to affect the other countries' farmer. So this is what the amber box subsidy, this market distorting subsidies. It's not like you have to eliminate this amber box subsidy, but there should be restriction. That restriction or condition is developing countries can give 10% such subsidy, and developed countries, they can give only 5% of such subsidy. And the last one is the blue box subsidy. The blue box subsidy is, very few countries they use it. It's like some Scandinavian countries are using. If you will keep your land fallow, if you will not grow anything for 1 year, the government will give you some amount of money to make your agriculture more sustainable. Some countries are giving, very few countries are giving this blue box subsidy. But if you are not growing anything, you are not distorting the market. So again, there is no restriction on the blue box subsidy. There is a restriction on amber box subsidy, 5%. Developed countries, up to 10% developing countries can give. Blue box subsidy, no restriction. Then we have the export subsidy. Export subsidy means you are subsidizing the products and then you are exporting. So it is not allowed. Then we have the market access. Market access means liberalize the import of all these agriculture commodities. So these are the 3 pillars of agreement on agriculture. The question can be asked, which of the following is not a pillar of agreement on agriculture? Domestic support, export subsidy and market access. These are the 3 pillars of agreement on agriculture. Then we have the peace clause. The peace clause says that suppose one country is violating any of these. It means a country is giving a subsidy of more than 10%. Then the other country can go against you in the dispute settlement board, and this dispute settlement board will decide. But suppose a country is in transition, 2 years, 3 years is required to shift it. Suppose right now you are violating, but maybe you know that after 2 to 3 years you will not violate. So during such transition period, you can sign peace clause. Under peace clause, you have to make your functioning more transparent. It means you have to share your information with the WTO directorate, but nobody can go against you for this 2 to 3 years. The time duration of peace clause was 4 years. So at max you can avail peace clause relaxation for 4 years. India also signed peace clause in the issue of National Food Security Act. In 2013 we signed it. Then we have what is the National Food Security Act issue that is going on. So what is National Food Security Act? Under the agriculture chapter we will discuss in detail. But National Food Security Act is 66% of the Indian population. It means 75% rural and 50% of the urban population will get some subsidized wheat, rice, pulses and all. So if government has to give such huge amount of wheat and rice, so government has to procure. So government has to procure from whom? Government will procure from the farmers. through FCI. This is FCI or the government of India. Whatever government of India dictate, FCI has to do it. Whatever will the targets, how much to procure, at what price to procure, all this is decided by government of India. The ministry will decide and FCI is just an implementing body. So when a lot of procurement will be there and lot of supply will be through FCI, and that too at a subsidized price, 1, 2, 3 rupees. So if the price will be so less, so the demand of all these items of wheat, rice and all in the market, suppose this is market and these are the beneficiaries, 66% and 34%, for example, 66, 67% is there. So this 33, 34%, maybe there can be chances of leakages, very much possible, or these 66% can export it. So the international market will be affected by the National Food Security Act of India. That is why countries like USA, Pakistan, Indonesia, they are against the National Food Security Act of India. Because when the government is procuring, so government is procuring at minimum support price, and this MSP comes under the amber box subsidy. And amber box subsidy, we have a restriction of only 10% of the subsidy you can give. But this 10% of what? This is the question. In newspaper you can read 10%, 5%. Most of the books it is like 10% is allowed for developing country, 5% for the developed country. But have you ever questioned it? 10% of what? 10% of the external reference price. There is a reference which was there on the average price of 1986 to 89, and that is there in the agreement on agriculture. And by taking the average, they said for both wheat and rice almost same, it was $265 at that time, and $265 at that time it was equivalent to 3,500 rupees. Now it is almost, it was there in 1989. In 2016 it can be as high as 13,000 or 14,000. As per the present exchange rate, it can be 15,000 also, because right now the dollar is 65, 66, take it as 70. So external reference price, so you can give a subsidy of 10% of this ERP. It means 3,500. The reason is the second problem. What India is saying that 10% of our currency we can give as the subsidy, and the developed countries or this USA and all, they are saying that you can give 10% of this particular old conversion. It means only 350 rupees you can give, and India is saying if it is 10% of this, let us take the advantage of our currency exchange. So what India is saying, we can give 1,300 rupees as the subsidy, and the developed countries, they are saying that whatever was fixed during that time when the agreement on agriculture was signed, that time of exchange rate should be used, and accordingly India should be allowed only 350 rupees. So India is facing a problem. India is breaching that 10% limit only for rice. India is not breaching for wheat or all other agriculture commodities, but only rice is the problem. We are breaching it for rice. The second one is different reduction commitments for different countries. We discussed there are 3 pillars. So these are the 3 pillars. So under agreement on agriculture, what is mentioned? That if you are violating any of these 3 pillars, domestic support or the export subsidy you are giving, or you are not giving the market access. In 1989, we were facing that exchange rate crisis. So India said BOP crisis is there, we will not give you market access. We were not involved in any export subsidy, and government of India was not breaching any of these 3 types of subsidies. So nothing was applicable on government of India, and because it means government of India was doing good, Indian economy was very well. But now India government has to face the negative consequences of our good past. We did good, But now we have to face the consequences because there is different reduction commitments for different countries. It is like, suppose we are saying all these agriculture commodities we are producing. This is wheat, this is rice, this is pulses, coarse cereals. Within this wheat, rice, pulses also we can further divide, coarse cereals we can further divide. So now our commitment, for us the target is the individual 10% should be there. It means 350 rupees. We discussed 3,500. So we can give at max subsidy of 350 rupees for wheat. Similarly, we can give at max subsidy of 350 rupees for rice. We can give at max whatever the ERP of coarse cereal, 10% of that, pulses 10% of that. This is applicable for India. But had there any country which had committed any of these things or which allowed any of these things, for them the commitment is different. What they are saying? The full agriculture thing will be counted as one and 10% of that agriculture output. Suppose India's agriculture output is, we say 265 million metric ton. That rupee equivalent of that is the maximum thing. Similarly, for any country which was violating any of these three things, so that country has accepted AOA, they have signed, they have amended something. So for these countries, the overall limit is there. It means, what is the negative thing is, when I said that India is breaching only for rice, 350 rupees, it means if we are not giving 350 rupees for wheat, suppose we are giving only 150 rupees. So the remaining 200 rupees we cannot divert to rice. But this is not in case of other countries. If you are giving for wheat, suppose you are giving 150 rupees subsidy, for rice you are giving 350 rupees subsidy, but this 200 rupees will be converted. So now you are allowed to give a subsidy of 550 rupees because overall 10% is there. But in case of India, it is dual. Overall also you have to fulfill 10% and product specific also you have to fulfill 10%. So this is like you committed something good in past, for that you have to face the punishment. Because in 1989 we were not violating anything, so we didn't sign it. So but now we didn't sign it, means we didn't accepted any of these things. We have not implemented any of these things because we said BOP crisis cannot sign. It was allowed in AOA. Then export subsidy we were not giving, so we have not done any changes. Domestic support we were not violating any of these three subsidies, so we have not amended anything. But now we have to face the negative consequence of this thing, because for India this 200 rupees of less subsidy given to wheat cannot be converted into this rice. So if you are breaching rice, it means somebody will go against you in the dispute settlement board. So this is what the different reduction commitment. The next one is the due inflation clause. The due inflation clause is, inflation should be counted. At that time it was 3,500 and the 10% of 3,500 is 350 rupees. The developing country face a lot of inflation. In India the rate of inflation is, on an average it is 6, 7 or 8% for last 10 years, for last decade. In case of developed countries, the inflation can be negative or it is as low as 0.5%, 1%. So for India, this price has highly increased. And when this price will increase, so 10% of this will increase. In AOA, it is mentioned due inflation will be counted when you are counting this 10%. So India is saying, because it is mentioned in AOA, we can increase it as per the inflation figures. Suppose it comes out to be 6,000. So India said from 1990s to 2016, there has been this much of the inflation. So now 600 rupees we can give as a subsidy. But the developed countries, they are saying automatically you will not get the 600 rupees or automatically due inflation clause will not be applicable. You have to take a permission from the WTO board. Then only you can take this due inflation clause. So this is the third major issue between developed country, India and the other countries headed by USA. So first we discussed ERP. India wants to use to convert the present dollar value, but they are saying it should be the old rupee value 3500 only, uska 10% you can use. The second one is different reduction commitment. For India it is product specific, 10% of this product as well as overall agriculture output. But the other countries which were committed some mistake, which were committed something wrong during that era, and they have done some changes, so they are allowed for only total thing. But in case of India it is individual also and total also. Then the due inflation clause, India said automatically we can use, because it is mentioned in a way the due inflation will be the due inflation can be taken by the economy while calculating that 10% of the ERP. Then at last we have trade facilitation agreement. Under that trade facilitation agreement, it is a good agreement, but it is not that good for developing country. Trade facilitation agreement is to decrease the red tapeism, that bureaucratic hurdle which the developed countries are facing when they are exporting the items. So on Indian ports, so first of all, Indian ports are not much connected. The connectivity is not that good. They are not much available online. The information is not available online. The e-payment services are not there. If suppose one importer is there and you have detained the goods, so no notification is given to that particular importer. So all these are the bureaucratic hurdles. The red tapeism is there. So under trade facilitation agreement, it is mentioned that all these things will be removed, because in developed countries all these things are there, because their priority is not poverty, their priority is not the infrastructure development of within the country. They are already developed, they have surplus amount of money, so they can use it, and their connectivity is already good. But in case of India, the government has other priorities. Of course that is going to increase the trade, but the government has other priorities as well. So when this trade facilitation agreement came, India said unless and until there is a resolution of National Food Security Act issue, we will not sign trade facilitation agreement. And we discuss WTO is a unanimous based organization. Even if a single country it disagrees to any particular agreement, that cannot be signed. So that trade facilitation agreement we used to get some relaxation in the National Food Security Act. The previous government signed peace clause. When you are signing peace clause, it means what? You are accepting the mistake, that yes, I am committing some mistake. Within 4 years we will negotiate and we'll find out something. So that few political economists, they criticize the signing of the peace clause of the previous government. But when this government came, they said that if this is the thing, what will happen if no negotiation will take place within 4 years? Then anybody will go into dispute settlement board, and WTO maybe will give judgment against our National Food Security Act. So this government said we will not sign trade facilitation agreement. So we use this TFA as a bargaining thing. So when Mr. Narendra Modi and Barack Obama, they sit during that last visit of our Prime Minister, at that time Modi discussed that we will sign TFA only and only if you will give us an assurance that unless and until NFSA issue is resolved, nobody will go against us. So that time frame of 4 years, that has been removed. So USA agreed. In the world, the Papa is USA only. So when the USA agreed, all agreed. So when USA agreed that NFSA issue, nobody will go against your NFSA issue unless and until it will be resolved. So that duration of peace clause has extended. That is not exactly peace clause, but the duration has extended without any restriction. Unless and until there is a mutual decision, nobody will go against India in case of NFSA. And that's we also ratified, we also signed the trade facilitation agreement. So the not signing of TFA was not because TFA is not good for India. It was because we wanted to use TFA as a bargaining thing, ultimately to get something different, and that thing is the extension of the negotiation of National Food Security Act. So these National Food Security Act issue is very relevant from exam perspective. This agreement on agriculture, or we can say Doha Round, in Nairobi issue, in that Nairobi meet recently of WTO, this was very much in news. That compulsory license is also much relevant from exam perspective. So this is what we have related to WTO. Thanks a lot.